Fit for Life Radio, episode number 62. Will and I, your host, I being Gary.
I am Gary.
We are here this week. We're going to dive into the topic of the scale.
Weighing yourself.
Weighing yourself and what you should think about it based on
Our
our
facts,
opinion,
man.
because that's all we spread is the fact.
Just the
Our
truth.
opinion is always fact. But yeah, based on just working with clients, and we have a recent kind of study that they did on the subject. It'll be interesting to go over.
Just to back up our anecdotes.
But first, we want to fill you in on what we've been watching. What I've been
Oh my
watching.
God. So, Gary, first off, Gary really likes trash TV. Like, I just can't help it. And I feel like a month he's been trying to get me to watch 90 Day Fiancé. Like, and I resisted for so long. And then, like, I finally broke down after he showed me some clips of it, and I literally can't, like, it's so bad, but I can't stop.
I know for a fact, I'm convinced it's because it makes you feel better about yourself.
Oh my God, I feel like I'm the most normal person in the entire world after watching it. And I'm like, damn, I got some social skills.
Yep. And to clarify, I like trash TV because you know how sometimes you watch some shows and they're just so deep and they require so much of your attention.
Yeah, dude, trash TV. But you know what? You end up getting really sucked in.
So you get real burnt out and you're like, I just need something mindless, and so it's nice.
Yeah.
You know? But then now my brother was asking me about some Netflix shows, and I'm like, dude, I haven't even logged in Netflix in like 3 weeks.
Just Hulu, that's it.
Just 90 Day in it. And some of them make you so angry. Like, I'll start talking to myself about the situation and how ridiculous it is.
Dude, I was doing the same exact thing at home. Oh, man. But I have like...
But there's two things. Like, you realize how much people are either scared or just don't want to be alone.
Yeah.
And
that's
then,
like basically the premise of the show. All those people are just afraid.
Because people will see all these red flags, or they in their peripheral.
Dude, they just blow past
see
all
the
the
red flag and they blow
flags.
past them, and it's like,
how did you not
this
see
this
that?
probably isn't going to work. Like,
Yeah.
but it's just crazy.
I don't know.
And then the other thing it shows to me is, in general, with I'm sure, like with dating and relationships via distance, online, like you see the problem, right? Like people, you do it, and then the longer you don't meet, you create this like fairy tale in your head, this perception.
Yeah.
And then
And then if it's not the same when you're in person, then that creates problems.
But and the cultural differences.
Oh my God,
Dude, you can learn so much, man.
I've learned a lot.
It's interesting to see how different America is.
Yeah.
Especially with,
and the
like,
expectation
family dynamic. You know how a lot of the people from other countries, they're so, they grow up and they live with their family, like their whole family.
and their
all live
families make
together.
decisions for them.
Mm-hmm.
Like some of the families are like, no, you can't do this. I was like, what? I'm gonna do whatever I want, and it just is so strange that a family has so much say over what an individual does.
Yep.
That's what blew my mind yesterday in the season we're watching. I have like 5.5 seasons left, so.
But the cool thing is, then there's some that are, you can tell normally right away that are legit. Like,
oh no, you can tell
and
by
they normally met like
organically.
It wasn't like forced, and then like you can just tell the ones that are in love, or
Oh, absolutely.
and then there's the ones that are just reaching, man. And you're like,
And you can feel it too.
popping that popcorn. Ooh,
Oh my God, every
just
night.
dig in on it. All right, so
Enough about that.
speaking of organic,
Free range.
free range,
Free range.
free range scale. So let's talk about the scale. I know we've touched on it maybe before, but the scale. So going into the new year, a lot of people are remotivated, and the scale is like this kind of, you get a pretty strong reaction from most people one way or the other.
Yep.
Of like, oh, I hate the scale.
I would say most people seem to. Maybe it's people are more vocal about not liking it, but
Mhm.
it seems like most people have like a negative
Connotation
reaction.
because
Yeah.
it's but so if on the first surface level you just think the scale is just data, I mean, it is
That's
a
it.
number, and you start looking, okay, so if we don't like it, it's typically because we don't like what it's telling us,
Yeah, we don't
right?
like the result, like what it's
So it makes
telling
us
us.
angry, uncomfortable, so we avoid it. But then that right there is why it's so important, because when we avoid it, and this is just especially what we see, like most people, so you meet someone they've been gaining weight the last 10 years, um, they haven't been weighing in.
No, they probably hit a point.
Most
Generally, it's
people,
like, oh man, after I hit X number of pounds, like I just stopped weighing myself because I couldn't handle it. And
yeah,
that's what happens to a lot of people. And I understand it makes you, you feel bad about it and
out of sight, but
out
it
of sight,
becomes
out of
out of sight,
mind.
out of mind.
Yeah, so you just push it away, and then you don't
Hmm.
have to worry about seeing that number.
So right there, and it's so similar to finances, right? Like,
Yeah,
so, and
it's a budget.
you start looking at other fields, like most people that are successful with any endeavor, there's some kind of data collection, or there's some like point, there's something to compare, there's something to
Yeah,
track.
some accountability of some sort.
Without that, everything's just kind of like floating around. So,
Yeah,
yeah, so if someone was like, man, I keep going broke, what's the first thing you're going to have them do? Like, keep a budget,
yeah. Write down what you spend.
track your spending. So that doesn't seem crazy, right? Like, I'm sure you're nodding your head, like, yeah, that's a good
Makes
idea.
sense.
So it makes sense with, oh, if you need to lose weight, if you're bigger than you want to be, your weight is literally like, a specific number that's the scale's telling you based off of gravity, and you're
Physics.
not really actually going to get a more accurate number. Now, when I say that, the problem is people get too tied up in what the actual number is,
Yes.
right? It's whether it tells you you're 300 pounds or 100 pounds, it doesn't really matter. What matters is the consistency. So ideally, you'd use the same scale, do it at the same time, and you just want a consistent number to track whether you're gaining or losing weight.
Yep.
But people get so emotionally attached to a number, and this isn't our fault. It's kind of like a society thing, right? Like, especially like women, they grow up and maybe there's like you know I'm supposed to be 120 pounds, right? Or you were at one point when you were 12 years old or something.
And then you get it in your head that like I have to be this weight
you
to
under
be
this
happy.
number, and then that number means something.
Yeah.
And as you get further and further, away from it, as you get older, there's more resentment almost towards it, right?
Yeah, and then just resentments like towards yourself too for not being there. Like you're mad at yourself.
So, one thing's to realize that, and that you just can't give it that much power. Um, it's funny because it is such a powerful thing. Like,
I think it's probably one of the most powerful things.
metric but so it's like you want to use that power, but at the same time not give it power.
Yeah,
but I think
don't
if
get
you can,
overwhelmed by it.
yeah, differentiate the two types of power, the emotional power versus the actual just kind of data awareness, accountability power, then that's a good start. Um, and in general, what we've seen with our clients is just that most people actually, it helps them a lot. It helps them become more aware, stay more accountable. And literally, probably over the last 2 years, we've gotten to where, especially when we do like challenges or start coaching people, they start digging in. It's a key habit.
It's probably the most impactful, I think.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm speaking personally too. Like that's probably one of my keystones when I'm trying to get leaner. Like if I weigh every day, literally everything falls into place.
Yep.
Just I'm in a better, mindset. My habits are better. It's just way cleaner for me to
Yep.
to do that way.
And then we stumbled on recently this. They did a study. University of Oxford scientists were curious,
Oxford.
so they wanted to kind of find out what people are thinking when they weigh themselves. And so it was a kind of small study. The average person was 36 years old, 9 men, 15 women. They, on average, weighed 187 pounds. So they basically had everyone weigh in every day, and then they kind of would think out loud with their thoughts or feelings about it, and record it, and then they took all the data, right, just to kind of see. And in general, what the study found was that the participants often they had hold on, I'm reading through this here.
When how studies are.
So in general, obviously the scale affected them, right? They had a thought, opinion about it. 90% of the people compared their weight to a previous weight or goal weight. That was kind of their initial reaction. 58%, they reflected on decisions and actions that may have influenced their weight. 14% made an action plan. 6% made a specific action plan. So, as you see, in general, almost everyone
Had a reaction.
had a reaction that was basically awareness-based. So whether it was comparing, which we'll get into, whether that's good or bad, or reflecting on decisions, which is, in our experience,
I think that's the
the
best
real
one.
benefit
Yeah.
of it. And even the comparing, there's pros and cons, right? If you're comparing, like we said earlier, you're comparing to your 13-year-old weight that a magazine told you you're supposed to
That's
be.
absolutely not realistic in any way, or healthy maybe.
That's a problem.
Yes.
If you're kind of comparing to the day before, or eventually gathering the info and getting your weekly average, then
That's fine.
that's fine, right? And ultimately, to me, like, that's kind of the obvious thing that's going to happen, right? Like, it's just natural. Like, you take this number every day, you're going to think about the day before.
Yeah, always.
Now, you'll notice a small percentage, which is probably a key, and that's where, like, with our programming and any coaching probably comes in, is, well, no one really makes an action plan, right? Very small percentage. 14 made an action plan, 6% made a specific action plan. So it's like, what are you doing based on those things?
Yeah, what are you doing with your data?
And
when you
obviously,
get
give
it?
an action plan that's going to go a long way. Now, the researchers' insight from the study was, not surprisingly, weighing leads to feelings of joy, shame, frustration, and guilt, depending on what the scale said that day. So weighing can mess with your emotions. Weighing can influence your choices later. So the daily weigh-ins made people think about their behaviors, which unfortunately often did not spur them to take specific actions. But so that's kind of where that's the turning point, right? Like, of if you do this and you don't really do anything,
Then it is going to frustrate you.
it is going to
'cause it's never
frustrate
gonna
you, especially
change
if you
and-
see it keep going up.
Yep.
But in our experience, so separate from this research study, because obviously it wasn't super long term, but what we've seen is it, at a bare minimum, when we have people accountable to weighing themselves in every day, they don't gain weight.
No, which I think should be celebrated more than people do. And, that might not be your absolute goal, but, like, if you gained weight for 10 years and all of a sudden you're not gaining weight,
Yeah.
that's a freaking victory.
And what if we told you, because now everyone, again, wants to do, we talked about the diets last episode, extreme approach, I need to change all this stuff, change everything. What if we literally told you, just start weighing in every day, that's the only change you need to make, and you're going to stop gaining weight?
Yeah.
Which is something maybe you've been struggling with for years and decades.
Yeah, that's huge. What if you go 6 months with the gaining 0 weight, and then from there you're, confident enough, like, man, I can actually change myself, like, and that leads to more change.
What happens is it doesn't feel like a lot of change, but subconsciously, obviously, people are making changes, and it only comes down to little decisions throughout the day.
But those add up, and we know those add up so much.
Yep, but they add up.
Yeah.
So main insights from the researchers: weighing can mess with your emotions. Weighing can influence your choices later. Some examples from the study. One study participant said, "Yesterday I was at a party in the afternoon and there was quite a lot of cake." What kind of party? That's what I want to know.
There's just like 12 cakes.
What kind of cake we talking about? So, that aside, let's assume it was a birthday cake. Yesterday I was at a party in the afternoon. There was quite a lot of cake. I didn't eat any of it.
I'm sorry.
Strip clubs are closed, man. It ain't that
They
cake.
drive through, man.
So,
Oh,
all right. So this participant,
I'm
yesterday
good.
I was at a party in the afternoon, and there was quite a lot of cake. I didn't eat any of it, and I think that was because of the awareness that I would be weighing. All right. Another said it was just likely in my head during the day, albeit very subtly. What a funny looking word.
It is.
That B in there, that silent B.
The longer you look at it, the more strange it gets.
Decisions that I'm making about what I'm eating and what I'm not eating. So while I butchered up that quote, you get where I'm going. So those are two examples of people who, yeah, they kind of had simple awareness from no one's telling them what not to eat, how much to eat, nothing like that. But because they're weighing it every day, they became a little more aware of food
And that
situations.
influence a decision. And imagine if that happened every day. Just that little decision of, you know what, I'm not going to have cake at the office or a donut or grab the candy from somebody's desk or whatever it is. Like,
Yep.
that adds up for a year, 5 years, 10 years.
Mhm.
So that's where that, 10 years of weight gain comes from.
Then some negative. Weighing can leave you baffled. So some participants had a hard time making sense of their weight changes on a day-to-day basis. For example, if they ate quote unquote well, but their weight was
Oof.
higher, it was confusing. This led to frustration as expectations were often not met. Now the thing with this, which that makes perfect sense, and that's
Yes.
probably the biggest hang up, that's where it's so important to what we think ultimately you want to take a weekly average. So you weigh in
Yes,
every day,
always.
say 7 days, and then take the average, add them all up, divide it by 7, then you're getting a better number that kind of accounts for those daily fluctuations.
Because there's always going to be water weight
Mhm.
and have
Yeah,
you gone to
there's-
the bathroom? Did I have more salt? Like, there's so many things that can influence you day to day. But over a week or a couple weeks, like that's where you actually see trends.
Yeah, and you just have to trust the process that those things are normal. Like that's
Yes.
what we drill in with people who struggle with that on a daily basis. It's like that's normal. That's normal. Like, don't expect it.
Yep.
Make that your expectation, and then over time, especially with some of these apps where you log it in and it will give you a nice, pretty graph, you start to see that trend,
Dude, that's the most satisfying thing.
that trend line. And
See
then-
those lines, man?
Exactly. So, like with anything, if you do this every day, over time, it's going to get easier because you're going to see, like, you can see, yeah, you start losing weight overall, and the daily fluctuations are normal, and you can be okay with that.
Yep. I'm gonna give an anecdote because Whitney hated weighing every day. Like she just didn't like the idea of it. Whatever. Always fought it, and then I don't know when it was. Time is so fluid right now. A year or
It was
two
probably
ago.
like December 2 years ago.
It was, yeah.
Yeah.
But she started weighing every day, and at first it was difficult. Just like it was frustrating to do and kind of annoying to do, whatever. And after like a few weeks, she was like, "This is the easiest thing," and it actually started enjoying it. But it's because she had to kind of go through that little uncomfortable phase of like, this is real accountability, and this is just showing me, like,
Yeah.
honestly, like what is going on.
And that's a normal reaction.
Yes.
It's because, again, we don't like doing it. We don't want to see it. Because when you step back and look at it from just a normal lens, it's
If you know me, you know I'm always on the run, up early and home late, so having a 3-hour morning routine isn't really in the cards for me. What is in the cards is AG1. It's a fast way to get vitamins and minerals I need to perform. I first gave AG1 a try because I wanted a single solution that helps support my entire body by filling in nutrient gaps and simplifying my morning routine. Since drinking AG1 daily, I've always felt strong and energized and ready to attack the day. Not only does AG1 deliver my daily dose of vitamins, minerals, pre- and probiotics, and more, it's a powerful, healthy habit that's also powerfully simple. It's one scoop mixed in water once a day and every day. I know that AG1 is giving my body high-quality nutrition. Every batch of AG1 goes through a rigorous testing process, so you know that it's safe. And AG1 ingredients are sourced for absorption, potency, and nutrition density. AG1 is a supplement that I trust to provide the support my body needs daily, and that's why I'm excited to welcome them as a new partner. Here is your chance to start every day this season with a gift to yourself. Try AG1 and get a free 1-year supply of vitamin D3K2 and 5 free AG1 travel packs with your first purchase exclusively at drinkag1.com/ Proven Grit. That's drinkag1.com/proven grit. Check it out.
And I do this with stuff all the time. You know, when you say, "Oh, something's difficult, I don't want to do it," and then you step back and you're like, "This takes 4 seconds a day." And of anything, like if someone wants to address their fitness and body weight, anything like that, think about it. Like, there's nothing if you can't do that, that's the easiest.
Yeah, well, yeah.
You don't have to leave your house. You don't have to put on clothes.
You just literally walk in the bathroom and step on the scale.
So then you give yourself, understand this is a mental battle that I just have to fight through.
And the more you do it, the easier and more routine it gets.
Yeah.
Like anything. I mean, we know how habits are built over time and repetition, but it becomes part of your morning. Like,
yep. And I know there's going to be the people listening that say, well, why should we have to, or they're thinking this, I shouldn't have to weigh in. That's not natural. People before were a healthy weight and scales didn't even exist.
Swiss cake rolls weren't natural back then
exactly.
either. So
this is very true. But you know what? I also had to walk everywhere to find food. We had to do laborious stuff to.
You also slept when the sun went down.
Mm-hmm. We didn't have 7-Elevens on the corner and food delivery to our house and hyper palatable foods cheaply available at all times. So
yeah, you have to meet those facts of how we live with, something like weighing yourself, which is, maybe not something we would need to intrinsically do in, we'll say nature, if we weren't around all of these things we created.
But that's where you have to be honest with, man, look at the environment we live in and the challenges that we face. So therefore I have to counter that. I need to create an environment that helps me battle this and be successful. And you know what? For most people, that involves weighing in so you can keep an eye on these things, right?
Yeah.
Because we know, not everyone, but in general, we can see ourselves gaining weight in the scale or in the mirror. And not be like, you know what? Nah, it's water weight
or it's just a couple pounds.
Yeah, and we can, and again, this doesn't tie, we've talked about this before, it's not about just aesthetics and how we look. Like the science, the facts, you're seeing this with coronavirus, being obese, getting into an obese and overweight BMI has negative health
it's just
consequences.
A risk factor for other things.
So again, that's why we harp on this. That's the root. There's obviously more nuance, but it's such a simple thing and simple metric that it's very solid. And compared to anything else, it's probably the best, most reliable way to kind of gauge some of these factors and eliminate risk factors with quote unquote health stuff.
Yep. And even then, I guess not just for losing weight. If you're trying to gain weight, you probably should weigh yourself every day.
Yeah, there's people who undereat and struggle and are underweight, and it causes bone issues and things like that. And they actually need to do the same to make sure they're gaining and eating enough.
Yeah.
So back to the study. So there's kind of they noticed positive stuff, right? Where weighing can influence your choices later, which is good. Weighing can leave you baffled, which is bad. We just went over that. But then overall, weighing can seem helpful, right? And that's such a researcher conclusion.
It can seem helpful.
Helpful. So I think that leans towards that's a safe answer. But in general, so all the participants from the study said they liked weighing themselves regularly. And I'll be honest with us, like that is the consensus as well. Once people get over that initial hump, like kind of what Will talked about Whitney having, that's actually normal too. We see that. Most people, I don't know, I don't want to do this. It's kind of like pulling teeth. But almost everyone that pushes through, maybe gets through that week or two phase of doing it, they end up liking it.
Yes.
So, from this study, pretty much all of them did say they liked weighing regularly. Then we can break it down a little more. Half said they'd continue doing it every day because it helped them keep on track with their weight loss goals. The other half said the daily weigh-ins were too frequent, but they'd want to do it at least weekly.
Which is still helpful,
Yep, they thought that this would be helpful for knowing which way their weight was trending. So, which is great. So I think that kind of shows weighing in is a good thing. I actually would lean. So the people that they struggle with weighing in every day, the thing is weighing in weekly
It's still one data point for a week.
It's only one data point. And yes, say you did take that after you had a restaurant meal that was high in sodium and your scale weight could go up 2 or 3 pounds. It doesn't really mean anything because it's just, again, water, sodium,
But it's
all
going to
that.
show as your one thing for the week.
But then, yeah, if your weight goes up 3 pounds from your last data point, and then you're not going to see another one for another week, you know it can be super frustrating.
Yeah.
Whereas weighing in every day, even though you actually get more practice at seeing the fluctuations. And
Yeah,
being
you
okay.
know after that meal I'll be up, but then, a day or two later I'll be absolutely back to where I should be.
Yeah.
And it's
then
easier
you
to
can get the
stomach
weekly
that.
average, right? Which then is going to be a nice smooth number. And as you compare that over the weeks, that's the number you compare. You'll see it's pretty smooth based on what's going on. So
Yep.
with that, so some good takeaways. Some people love the scale. Some people hate it, right? Ultimately, I think most people hate it because
Just everything like
they don't want to see it. Yeah, that's another no duh takeaway. But in general, I think most people should do it. Like anything, it's going to be uncomfortable and difficult in the beginning. If you truly have some issues, mental body weight type issues, it may not be ideal.
Yeah.
And you may want to address some other stuff first. And there's plenty of other things you can use, other metrics.
Yes.
But
But it still is valuable, and if it just makes you uncomfortable, absolutely push through it. If it affects your mental well-being, then again,
yeah. But if you
seek
feel
help
confident
elsewhere.
using the scale and understanding it's a tool and knowing how to use it, then you should definitely do it.
Yeah, that's been a big shift, at least for us over the past couple of years. Like when we started doing that with people,
Yeah.
like I felt that's strangely the most beneficial thing we've ever done.
Well, and as a coach, like it gives you data as well.
Yeah.
It gives your coaches data because it's so hard for someone to be like, I'm stuck, I'm struggling, I don't know what's going on.
I feel like I'm doing everything right.
And then we, as a coach, are like, oh, well, are you gaining weight? I don't really know, right? We're not going to be able to.
We can't make a decision to help you.
Exactly. So, because a lot of times there's just emotional stuff. You could have, quote unquote, where you're feeling like a fat day. Everyone has those, right? Where you feel
for
bloated
sure.
and you feel off, and yet, so then you're telling your coach that's how you feel. When in reality, who knows what you're doing? You could have lost 4 pounds over the last 3 weeks, and you just feel that way. And so then you could be making a mistake by making a drastic change with what you're doing.
Yeah. Yeah.
So the scale gives hard, unbiased data.
Yeah.
And most importantly, it's consistent, right? We like it a lot better than measurements because measurements are tough,
Well, they got to be exactly in the same spot, usually done by the
spot,
same person. If somebody else is
person.
doing them.
Even then, the same spot and same person. Say you're pulling a tape measure. I mean, you got to have the same pressure that you're pulling on.
Yeah, so it's
you can have a tendency as a coach. You're like, I want this to be better, right? And you maybe pull a little tighter, even, subconsciously. So, and the changes are going to be a lot smaller over time. So the scale really wins out.
Yeah, I think the scale's overall the best, hands down. So if you haven't been weighing yourself, I think you should.
And then really, to recap, the key, if you decide to weigh in, which overall we think you should, push through the discomfort, but the ideal way is going to be weighing in every day. Again, for the habit, it helps you get better at it, more comfortable with it, but it is ideal when you're then taking the weekly average. So you don't want to really compare the daily stuff. You want to get in the habit of just taking it, logging it, and moving on. But then every week you take the average of the 7 days and then kind of track and log those weights. So those are going to be smoothed out from the 7-day average, and that's going to give you a really solid, really accurate, number.
Yep. And there's plenty of apps out there. Like Lose It, I think, is one of them. My Weight is another one. There's a lot of them, but they give you, very satisfying graphs, and all you have to do is log your weight, and it does all of the work for you, basically. So those are super useful, I think, to doing it. Because then it's one less barrier. If you just have an app, log it, and it handles everything, then you're usually going to be a lot better off than if you have to do all of it yourself, or you're writing it in a notebook, and you got to do math and all of that. So...
And the real beauty of this, and I know this is uncomfortable for people, because people want, again, when they want to make change, like we talked about in last week's episode, everyone wants to do like the hardest thing, and I'm going to do all this at
Want to
once.
do everything.
But the beauty that we see is we can tell someone to weigh in every day, and they start losing weight.
Because they make changes subconsciously
Yeah.
without even trying to make them.
Yeah, and wouldn't you rather achieve your goal?
Accidentally.
Yeah, accidentally with only making a little change where you have to step on the scale for 30 seconds every morning,
Yeah.
and then all of a sudden you start making subconsciously better, smaller decisions more consistently throughout the days, but you don't have to feel like no one's telling you you can only eat these things or don't eat these things, or you need to do all this planning or all this exercise and that.
Mhm.
You literally, it's just a small change, small habit that can go a long ways for a lot of people.
Yeah, and I think too, to really harp on this, it's the expectation you set for yourself too. Like, Gary said, if you expect to see your weight go down daily, you're just gonna have a really rough time,
Yep.
right? But if you expect to just like, you know what, I'm gonna see it over time, and I'm gonna, it's gonna be fine. When you set that expectation, then you're not, you're not shaken by the daily, right? I could actually, maybe I'll post them, like some wild graphs of like, if I, go hard and, we got to eat or whatever, or just, have a day where I eat a lot on the weekend, like I could be up 5 or 6 pounds, and then that dramatic drop when everything is normal, is like, I know it's going to happen. It doesn't freak me out. It's just, that's my day and what it is. But when you can, understand that and, not expect, because, if I don't expect that really big weight gain on that, I say weight gain, I'm just holding more weight. But if I don't expect that, like, it's going to shock you if you're like, man, I gained 6 pounds in a whole day. And we get people that'll say that, like, oh, I gained 3 pounds over the weekend. Well, you didn't gain 3 pounds. You just ate a lot of food and you're holding some water and it should smooth out. But if you do that all the time, then yeah, you absolutely will eventually gain 3 pounds if that's your, your normal. So it's just understanding that it does take time and the daily fluctuations are completely cool. So
Yep.
that's all.
And I think deep down inside, most people know they avoid it because of the reality of it.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's something to seriously consider, that this study done by, Oxford.
Oxford. Is that in the UK?
I don't know.
I think it is. I probably should know, but
Let's see.
I think it is.
Officially, what did I say? What University of Oxford scientists.
Yeah, it's in England.
Has
Someone's probably screaming at the podcast while they listen to this
But yeah,
about us not knowing that.
so take all that into thought, consideration. Let us know your experiences with the scale.
Yeah, positives and negatives. And the other thing I did want to touch on too, just real quick, because in the study, so few people, had an action plan, and even fewer people had a detailed action plan. And I think that is where us as coaches come in and helping people with, said action plan. If you weigh yourself and you see the data, but you're like, I don't know what to do with this, then it can be, a little bit detrimental. But if you have somebody to help you along with it, like, you report back to us, this is what my weight was for the week, or this is my rolling average, then we know how to make changes and help you make an action plan. So I think that's just something valuable that any coach can offer somebody who is, maybe feeling overwhelmed with how do I make change, after I weigh myself. Because if you go long enough with no plan and you're continually weighing yourself, you're absolutely going to hit that frustrated state.
Yeah.
So, so just a note, if, you are doing it on your own, having somebody to help is always going to be a little bit better.
Good point. Duly noted,
Duly.
sire. Is that at Oxford?
I don't know.
Is that how you talk when you University of Oxford?
I'm going to go there. We're going to find out.
Is that where Oxford shirt came from?
Probably. That would make sense. Oxford. What's an Oxford shirt, though? Is that
Like
a collared shirt?
Yeah, like the button-down shirt. Isn't that called an Oxford?
Man.
You know what I'm talking about? Like the preppy, like shirt you'd wear if you had a real job.
But nobody wears those anymore because everyone works from home.
Make y'all start training in Oxfords.
Yeah, okay, yeah, it is. It's like a regular Well, okay.
Now I gotta know. Yeah, it's a button down with the collar.
Button down with a collar. Something that we don't wear here.
Origin. Oof. So, the cloth is called Oxford cloth.
Oh, is it from Oxford?
And the shirt
Don't leave us hanging.
made its way to American shores where it was embraced by Ivy League students in the 1920s and 1930s.
Interesting.
So, but we still got to know, like the word Oxford. Why is it called Oxford cloth?
Yeah.
Oh, here we go.
You got it?
Polo players of the British Raj played in tops made out of Oxford because the fabric was comfortable and breathable. Still not answering our question.
We're never going to get an answer. It goes real deep,
Mm.
but nobody actually knows why it's called that.
Oxford shirts do not originate from Oxford.
There we go. Okay. Settled. That's kind of disappointing.
Now I can sleep tonight.
Yeah, same.
Mm-mm-mm.
I'll have a good night's sleep.
Who would have thought? So much history.
Covered a lot
Alright.
today.
Maybe that will be another podcast. We just start
Just history.
history. The history of Ivy League Oxford shirts.
The history of cotton shirts
All
that
right.
you got into.
So ignore that for now. Start getting on your scale.
Daily weight.
If you do
log it
weigh in your Oxford shirt, then make sure you weigh in your Oxford shirt every day.
every day. Consistency.
It needs to be consistent. If you weigh in with a bucket of 15-pound water every day,
Make sure
you do that every day. It doesn't really matter. Again, the number. A lot of times I notice people will weigh in at their home, and then they'll go weigh in at their doctor, and it will be different.
And it freaks them out.
And they get all freaked out. And it's like, dude, that's a completely different scale.
Yeah,
like,
it's just
it
going to be different.
doesn't mean anything changed.
Yes.
It's just a different scale.
Not all scales are calibrated exactly the same on like a,
Yeah.
I don't know, worldwide network.
Yeah, you could. I mean, you're going to use 5 different scales,
And you get 5 different
and
weights.
you're going to get 5 different
Yep.
weights.
And all of them are correct.
Yep. So just make sure it's as consistent as possible.
Same scale.
The same scale, same floor,
Same person.
same person, same time, and you'll be good. Then just start recording, and then making plans based on what's happening and where you're wanting to go.
Yeah. And if you need help making a plan,
Hit us up.
holla. We got you.
All right. See you guys later.
See you. As always, thanks for listening, guys. If you want to learn more, check us out at coastalfitnessva.com or garydeagle.com. We'll see you next time.